Give it back. My voice barely made it across the dining table, but my father heard me. He kept one hand on the sealed folder, like it was something he had bought, something he owned, something that had never belonged to me at all. Across from him, my brother Caleb sat with his shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the scratched wood between us. He was 20, old enough to speak for himself, but he didn't. Not when my father slid my Harrington Scholars Award application closer to him. Not when I saw Caleb's name written on the top checklist where mine had been that morning. Dad tapped the folder once. This is going in under Caleb's name. For a second, the kitchen light hummed louder than everything else. I stared at the folder. The blue Harrington seal was still on the front. The corner still had the tiny crease from when Mrs. Renner and I had stayed late after school fixing my essay margins. The paperclip on the side was still the one I'd used to hold my transcript, recommendation letters, volunteer records, and final verification page together. My application, my months, my chance. Before we continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy the story. Also, drop a comment with your location and local time. I always love hearing where you're listening from. Everyone at school knew it was supposed to be mine. Teachers had stopped me in the hallway to say they were proud. Mrs. Renner, my counselor, had told me the board was impressed. Even classmates who barely spoke to me knew I was the Harrington finalist with the highest GPA in senior year. And now my father was sitting at the dining table like he had simply rearranged dinner plates. "What do you mean under Caleb's name?" I asked. Dad leaned back, calm in the way he always was when he had already decided something and expected the rest of us to catch up. "He needs it more." Caleb flinched, but he still didn't look at me. I turned to him. "You didn't write that essay." His jaw moved once. Nothing came out. "You didn't collect those recommendation letters," I said. "You didn't do the volunteer hours. You didn't even apply." Dad's fingers tightened on the folder. "Lower your voice." I laughed once, not because anything was funny, but because my body didn't know what else to do with the shock. "The deadline is tomorrow." "Exactly," Dad said, "so we don't have time for dramatics." I reached for the folder. His hand came down flat on top of it. The sound was small. "Final. You're 18, he said, "but you still live in my house. I pay the bills, I sign the forms, I keep the documents safe. And I'm telling you, this is what's happening." My stomach pulled tight. The final Guardian verification page was the reason I had brought the packet home. One signature. That was all I needed from him. I had done everything else myself, because I knew better than to depend on anyone too much. I had filled out every field, chased every signature, rewritten my essay until my eyes burned. The essay was about surviving financial instability without letting it swallow me. About earning a future instead of waiting for someone to hand one to me. Now my father was handing it to Caleb. "Dad," Caleb muttered, "maybe we should just—" "No." Dad cut in without looking away from me. "Your brother already lost one college opportunity. He doesn't get chances the way you do." I looked at Caleb then, really looked. His grades had slipped for 2 years. He had dropped classes, missed deadlines, blamed instructors, blamed stress, blamed bad luck. Every time he fell, Dad treated it like a family emergency. Every time I succeeded, it became proof that I could survive with less. "You're smart," Dad said to me. "You'll find another way." The sentence landed harder than shouting, because that was always the rule in our house. Caleb needed rescuing. I needed to be grateful I didn't. I pulled my hand back slowly. Dad seemed to take that as surrender. "Good," he said. "You understand." I didn't understand. I couldn't even breathe right. He opened the folder just enough to expose the top checklist. With his black pen, he crossed out the line where my name had been printed and wrote Caleb Vale in the space above it. My face went hot. Some of the pages beneath still had my initials in the bottom corner. LV, tiny, neat, unmistakable. He had not even bothered to hide all of me before giving my work away. Something else caught my eye too. The folder was thicker. I knew that packet. I had counted those pages twice before dinner. Transcript, essay, recommendations, activity record, financial statement, final verification. Now there were extra sheets tucked behind the first section. "What did you add?" I asked. Dad closed the folder. "Family paperwork." "What paperwork?" "The kind Caleb needs." Caleb finally looked up then, and for 1 second I saw panic in his eyes, not guilt. Panic. "What happens if they notice?" he asked Dad. Dad's expression did not change. "They won't." I stared at him. He slid the folder into a large mailing envelope already addressed to the Harrington Scholars Board. The printed label was perfect. Too perfect. Like he had prepared it before this conversation ever started. Caleb swallowed. But if they ask about the essay, Dad sealed the envelope. The story is what matters. That sentence froze something inside me. The story, not the grades, not the records, not the letters with my name in every paragraph, not the truth, just the story. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the envelope and run out the front door. I wanted to tell Caleb he was a coward and tell my father he had no right. But when my family cornered me, my throat always locked first. Dad knew that. He had counted on it. He stood envelope in hand. If you cause trouble, he said, don't expect me to cover graduation fees, senior activities, or anything else. Think carefully before you embarrass this family. Then he walked toward the front hall. I went upstairs without another word, but I didn't cry. I opened my laptop with hands that shook so badly, I typed my password wrong twice. My email loaded. At the top was an unread message from the Harrington Scholarship Coordinator, sent earlier that afternoon. Subject: Applicant Portal Access Confirmation. I clicked it. One sentence stood out from the screen. Please confirm that no one else has access to your applicant portal. My breath stopped. Downstairs, the front door opened. I ran to the window just in time to see my father step outside with the envelope tucked under his arm. The next morning, I walked into school with the Harrington email still glowing in my head. Please confirm that no one else has access to your applicant portal. I had read it at least 15 times before dawn, sitting at my desk while the rest of the house stayed quiet. I never replied. I didn't know what to say without sounding ridiculous. My father stole my scholarship application and gave it to my brother. Even thinking it made my face burn. The hallway smelled like floor polish and cold rain from everyone's jackets. Lockers slammed. Someone laughed near the trophy case. Life kept moving like my entire future had not been sealed inside an envelope and carried out the front door. Lolitha! Mrs. Renner's voice stopped me before I reached first period. She came toward me with a folder hugged to her chest, smiling the way she had been smiling all week, proud and nervous for me at the same time. I was hoping I'd catch you, she said. The Harrington office sent another update. Your interview score was exceptional. I don't want to jinx anything, but they're clearly excited about you. My fingers tightened around my backpack strap. About you, not Caleb. Me, Mrs. Renner tilted her head. Are you all right? I forced my mouth to move. Yeah, I didn't sleep much. That's normal before a final deadline. She lowered her voice. But everything is in place, Lolitha. You earned this. Those words should have helped. Instead, they made the dining room flash behind my eyes. Dad's hand on my folder. Caleb staring at the table. The black pen crossing out my name like it had been a typo. I nodded too fast. Thank you, Mrs. Renner looked like she wanted to ask more. But the bell rang and students pressed between us. I escaped into the current before she could see how close I was to breaking. By lunch, Maya had noticed. She dropped into the seat across from me, set down her tray, and didn't touch it. Okay, she said. What happened? Nothing. Lolitha. I stared at my unopened milk carton. You look like someone died, Maya said. This is supposed to be your victory week. The scholarship board basically rolled out a red carpet for you. I flinched at the word scholarship. Maya saw it. What did your dad do? That was the problem with having one real friend. She knew where to aim. I shook my head. It's a family issue. Is it about the Harrington application? I kept silent. Maya leaned closer. Did he refuse to sign something? That would have been easier. That would have sounded normal. Strict father, money stress, last-minute fight. Something people could understand. But Dad hadn't refused to sign my future. He had reassigned it. I can't talk about it here, I said. Maya's expression changed, but she didn't push. She just slid her cookie onto my tray like I was still a person who could be helped by sugar. The rest of the day moved around me in fragments. In English, Mr. Paulson congratulated me in front of 3 students who turned to stare. In chemistry, someone asked if I would remember them when I was Harrington famous. Every mention felt like a hand pressing on a bruise. By the time I got home, Dad was in a good mood. That was the first thing that scared me. He stood at the kitchen counter slicing an apple, humming under his breath. Caleb sat at the table with his laptop open. The Harrington website was on the screen. There she is, Dad said. Come sit down. I stayed near the doorway. Why? Your brother has his interview Friday. My stomach dipped. His interview? Dad gave me a look. Don't start. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. They moved it up, I guess. Dad set the knife down carefully. You're going to help him prepare answers. No. The word came out quiet, but it came out. Dad's smile faded. Excuse me? I'm not helping him pretend he wrote my application. Caleb looked at the laptop. Dad leaned both hands on the counter. The board values resilience, he said. Your brother has plenty to say about family hardship. He doesn't know what I wrote. He can learn. Caleb clicked through a document on the screen, eyes scanning too quickly. Then he frowned. What's the hospital paragraph? My head snapped toward him. What? He turned the laptop slightly. There's a part about the hospital. I don't know what this is supposed to mean. Cold moved through my arms. There was no hospital paragraph in the final printed essay. There had been one in an older draft, a private draft. One I cut weeks ago because it felt too raw. It was about sitting beside Dad after his medical scare 2 years earlier, doing homework under vending machine's light, realizing no adult was coming to organize my life for me. I had never printed that version. I had never given it to Caleb. Dad's eyes flicked to me for half a second. That section is strong, he said. It shows hardship. How did he get that draft? I asked. Dad picked up an apple slice. You leave things open. No, I don't. You're upset. So you're making accusations. Caleb looked between us. I didn't ask for that part. But you'll use it, I said. He didn't answer. Later, Dad called Aunt Denise on speakerphone while I was still in the kitchen. He didn't ask me to leave. Maybe he wanted me to hear. Caleb finally got recognized, Dad said warmly. Big scholarship interview Friday. Aunt Denise gasped. Caleb? I thought Lolitha was the one applying for that big award. Dad laughed, light and easy. You know how people exaggerate with Lolitha. She's always involved in school things. I stood at the sink, hands under water that had gone too hot. Involved. Months of work became involved. Aunt Denise said something about being proud of Caleb, and Dad beamed at him across the room. Caleb looked uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to correct anyone. That night he came to my door. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't invite him in. Then don't do it. He shifted his weight. It could fix everything. For you. For the family. I stared at him. Did you even read the essay? Dad said not to worry about every detail. He said the board mostly checks need. The confidence in that lie did not sound like Caleb. It sounded rehearsed. After he left, I opened my laptop and went straight to the Harrington portal. My password failed. I typed it again. Failed. I clicked password recovery. A message appeared. Recovery email changed 3 days ago. For a moment, I just stared. 3 days ago meant Dad had not taken my folder because of some sudden dinner table decision. He had changed access before he ever told me. Before he watched me reach for the application. Before he said Caleb needed it more. I stood and searched the bottom drawer where I kept my documents. The folder with my birth certificate copy was crooked. My old student ID copy was gone. My room looked the same, but it felt entered. Used. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Caleb lit the screen. Dad says the board moved the interview to Friday. He wants you to write answers for me tonight. Dad didn't wait for me to answer Caleb's text. 10 minutes later, Caleb's laptop was open on the kitchen table, pushed into the empty chair, across from Dad like a trap waiting for me to sit down. I stood in the doorway with my backpack still on. Dad looked up from the screen. Take your coat off. I have homework. This is homework. Caleb sat beside him, elbows on the table, looking like he wanted the floor to split open and rescue him. But the laptop was still there. The Harrington portal was still open. And my brother's name was sitting at the top of a page built out of my life. Dad turned the laptop toward me. Your brother needs interview answers, not a speech. Just enough to sound prepared. I didn't move. I said no. Dad blinked slowly. Like I had made a grammar mistake. This family does not survive on pride, Lolitha. It's not pride. It's my application. It was your application, he said. Now it's being used where it's needed. Caleb's eyes closed for half a second. I stepped closer to the table, just enough to see the screen clearly. There were interview prompts listed in neat boxes. Describe a challenge that shaped your academic goals. Explain how your community work reflects your values. What makes you the best candidate for the Harrington Scholars Award? My throat tightened. Those questions belonged to me. I had already answered versions of them in draft after draft, in Mrs. Renner's office, in the library after school. On nights when Dad complained the electric bill was high, and Caleb disappeared to avoid being asked about his classes. Dad tapped the first prompt. Start with this one. Caleb can talk about setbacks. He doesn't know my setbacks. He knows enough. No, he doesn't. Dad's face hardened. You think because you get good grades, everyone else has to stay behind you. I gripped the back of the chair. He did stay behind me. That's what happens when someone doesn't do the work. Caleb looked up sharply. I did work. On this, he went quiet. Dad stood so suddenly, the chair legs scraped the tile. Your brother has fewer options than you. he said. You have teachers calling the house, counselors chasing after you, people handing you opportunities because you're good at looking perfect. Handing me? I repeated. You know what I mean. No, I worked for every part of that folder. And Caleb is trying to recover from mistakes. Then let him recover with his own name and his own work. Dad leaned over the table. You can recover from losing this. Caleb can't. The room went still. That was the truth underneath everything. Not that Caleb deserved it. Not that the application somehow fit him. Just that Dad believed my future was flexible because I was disciplined enough to survive damage. I looked at Caleb. Say something. His hands curled around the edge of his chair. Just help me get through the interview, he said quietly. The words hit worse than silence. Dad sat back down as if that settled it. Good, open a document. I didn't. Instead, I turned the laptop slightly toward myself and looked at the profile page. Applicant, Caleb Vale, date of birth, his. Current enrollment, his community college. Then the next section, academic rank, first in class, GPA, mine, volunteer organization. The Literacy Center where I spent every Saturday morning for 2 years. Leadership Award, mine. Recommendation contact, Mrs. Renner. Essay theme, mine. It was not even a clean theft. It was a stitched-together version of us. Caleb's name, sewn onto my accomplishments badly enough that anyone who looked closely should have seen the seams. My pulse started pounding in my ears. You submitted this electronically, I asked. Dad's expression barely shifted. Yes. When? Before dinner yesterday. I stared at him. You said you were mailing it. I mailed supporting documents. The portal needed updating first. How did you get into my portal? Dad's mouth curved without warmth. You should have chosen stronger passwords. Caleb's head dropped. Something inside me went cold and clear. You changed my recovery email. Dad didn't deny it. You were too emotional to handle this practically. I reached for my phone in my pocket. Dad's hand shot out. Give me that. No, Lolitha. I backed up one step. His voice lowered. Do not contact the board. I should have contacted them last night. And said what? He asked. That you helped your brother and regretted it because you didn't like sharing attention? My fingers froze around the phone. Dad saw that he had landed the hit. That's what this will look like, he said. A jealous sister. A family application. A little confusion. And if you make accusations now, I will tell them you helped Caleb adapt the material and then panicked. I didn't help him. Not yet, Dad said. But you're going to. Caleb stood halfway from his chair. Dad, come on. Dad didn't look at him. Sit down. Caleb sat. I hated that he obeyed so quickly. I hated even more that I understood it. Dad held out his hand. Phone. I should have run. I should have refused harder. But he had already named every expense he could take from me. Graduation fees, senior activities, transportation, the small things that made school possible when you didn't have your own money yet. I put the phone on the table. Dad slid it into his pocket. You'll get it back when you calm down, he said. I looked at Caleb. Do you know the scholarship requires original work certification? He swallowed. Dad said families help each other all the time. That's not an answer. I don't know all the rules, okay? You know enough to be scared. His face reddened. You think I want to be the failure forever? No, I said. I think you want me to disappear so you don't have to be. Dad slammed his palm on the table. That is enough. The laptop shook. For one quick second, the profile page shifted, and the application ID appeared near the corner of the screen. H4172. I looked down before Dad noticed my eyes move. There was a grocery receipt beside the fruit bowl. I picked up the nearest pen, like I needed something in my hand, and wrote the number small beside the printed total. Dad didn't see, Caleb did. His eyes flicked to the receipt, then to me, but he said nothing. Dad pushed the laptop closer again. Start typing. I slid the chair back into place instead. No. His face went flat. I looked at Caleb. If you go into that interview, they're going to ask you about people you never met, hours you never worked, and an essay you don't understand. Caleb's mouth opened, but no defense came. Dad took my phone from his pocket and held it up. Then you won't need a ride to that regional banquet tomorrow. My chest tightened. The academic banquet Mrs. Renner had arranged for me to attend as a finalist. It was the one public moment I had allowed myself to be excited about. Dad slid my phone back into his pocket. No more public performances, he said, until you remember who comes first. The next morning at school, Maya let me use her phone behind the gym. I dialed the Harrington office with shaking fingers. The line rang twice. Harrington Scholars Program, how may I direct your call? I opened my mouth. Dad's voice replayed in my head. A jealous sister, a family application. I hung up. Maya stared at me. Lolitha. I need proof first, I whispered. Before she could answer, Mrs. Renner appeared at the end of the hall, walking fast, her face pale in a way I had never seen. Lolitha, she said, pulling me aside. Why did the Harrington board just call asking whether Caleb was the student I recommended? Mrs. Renner closed her office door behind us with a soft click that sounded louder than any hallway bell. Sit down, she said. I sat because my knees were already unreliable. Her office was usually the safest room in the building. College brochures lined the walls. A ceramic mug full of pens sat beside a stack of scholarship flyers. On any other day, I would have felt relieved to be there. That morning, I could barely look at her. Mrs. Renner opened a yellow folder and turned one page toward me. The Harrington board contacted me 20 minutes ago. They said they were reviewing the recommendation letter I submitted and needed clarification. My mouth went dry. She tapped the page. My letter names you throughout. Your academic history, your volunteer record, your essay process. But the applicant listed on their portal is Caleb Vale. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the chair. There must be a mistake, I said. Mrs. Renner didn't answer right away. She watched me with the same careful expression she used when students came in, pretending not to cry. Lolitha, she said gently. Did someone submit materials without your permission? The truth rose all the way to my tongue. My father took my application. My brother is using it. They want me to pretend I agreed. But the words stayed trapped behind everything Dad had said at the kitchen table. He had already built a version of me that sounded ugly enough for other people to believe. Jealous, dramatic, angry that Caleb had gotten attention. I don't know what happened, I whispered. Mrs. Renner's eyes softened, but she didn't push. Then we need to be very careful. By third period, careful was already impossible. Rumors move faster than official emails. Someone near my locker said, I heard the Harrington thing got messed up. Another voice answered, no, I heard she got disqualified. When I turned, both girls looked away too quickly. In the cafeteria, a boy from my government class walked past my table and said, not quietly enough, how do you lose a scholarship to your own brother? A few people laughed. My fork stayed in my hand, hovering over food I hadn't touched. Maya slammed her water bottle down. Say it again. The boy lifted both hands.
Relax. I'm just saying that's brutal.
No, Maya said. You're repeating something you don't understand. He walked away, still smiling. I wanted to thank her, but my throat had closed. Maya sat beside me instead of across from me. There's more. She opened her phone and slid it toward me. Caleb's social media page was on the screen. His post had gone up that morning. Proud to announce, I'm officially in the running for the Harrington Scholars Award. Comeback season. Under it was a photo of Caleb standing in our kitchen, holding the same scholarship folder Dad had taken from me. He wore a stiff smile, like someone trying on confidence in front of a mirror. My stomach twisted. He posted it, I asked. Maya nodded. People are sharing it. I zoomed in on the picture without thinking. Behind Caleb's hand, part of the folder label was visible. The corner of one page stuck out near the side, and I recognized the slant of my own handwriting, the essay title. The one Mrs. Renner said was strong because it sounded honest without begging. My work was literally in his hands while he announced himself like the finalist. He knows, I said, Maya's voice lowered. Knows what? That it's mine. The lunchroom noise pressed in from every side. Trays, chairs, laughter, phones buzzing. I sat there watching Caleb's post collect comments from relatives, classmates, people from his community college. Proud of you, man. You deserve this. Your comeback starts now. Every comment felt like another person standing on my side of the line and pushing me backward. Before the last bell, Mrs. Renner called me back to her office. This time, the principal was there too. Principal Armand stood near the window with his arms folded, face serious but cautious. We are not accusing anyone, he said before I even sat down. The Harrington board has asked for clarification. Until they complete their review, we need discretion. Mrs. Renner's jaw tightened. The recommendation issue is significant. I understand, he said. Then he looked at me. Lolitha, this school's name is attached to those documents. If there was an error, we need to correct it through proper channels, not hallway conversations. An error. That word made my hands curl in my lap. Before I could answer, the office phone rang. Mrs. Renner picked it up, listened, then looked at me. Your father is here. Dad entered like he had been invited to defend the family honor. He wore his work jacket and an offended expression. Caleb was not with him. What exactly is going on? Dad asked. My daughter calls this a family issue, and suddenly the school is treating my son like he forged a passport. Principal Armand raised a hand. Mr. Vale, no one said that. Mrs. Renner stayed seated. My recommendation letter was written for Lolitha. The applicant profile now says Caleb. That is not a small discrepancy. Dad sighed like she had disappointed him. This is a family misunderstanding, he said. Lolitha helped Caleb prepare because she wanted him to succeed. Now emotions are running high. My head snapped toward him. That's not true. Dad turned to me slowly. Are you saying you want to accuse your own father of stealing? The office went silent. It was a perfect question because it wasn't really a question, it was a stage. He had placed me on it under adult eyes and dared me to say the ugliest version of the truth out loud. My lips parted. Nothing came. Dad looked back at the principal. See, this is stress. She's young. Mrs. Renner's voice cut through, firm but controlled. The letter cannot legally or ethically be used for Caleb. Dad shrugged. Then the board can disregard it and evaluate Caleb's life story. That was when I understood something new. He was willing to throw away pieces of my application as long as Caleb kept the rest. He didn't need the whole truth to hold. He just needed enough confusion to keep Caleb in the race. By evening, Caleb's interview had been postponed pending document review. Dad blamed me before his keys hit the counter. Your little scene almost cost Caleb everything, he said. I stood near the stairs. I didn't create this. You made it public. You did that when Caleb posted my folder. His face tightened. Then he pulled a folded paper from his jacket and placed it on the table. Sign this. I didn't move. It says you voluntarily helped your brother adapt the application, he said. That ends the confusion. I picked it up. The sentence in the middle made my skin go cold. I gave my brother permission to use my essays, records, and supporting materials. No, I said. Dad reached for it, but before he grabbed it, I lifted my phone and took a picture. His hand snapped over the paper. Delete that. I backed away. That night, locked in my room, I opened Caleb's post again and zoomed in on the folder. This time, I looked past my essay title. At the bottom of the visible label was a printed barcode. Under it sat a number I knew by heart, H4172, my original applicant ID. I compared the barcode 3 times before I let myself believe it. H4172. I had seen that number on every Harrington email since October. It was printed at the top of my original confirmation message, tucked between my name and the words finalist review pending. It was the number Mrs. Renner told me to memorize in case I had to call the board. Now it was sitting on Caleb's folder in a photo he had posted for applause. Not a similar number, not a new file, mine. I opened my email archive and searched Harrington. Dozens of messages filled the screen. Submission reminders, interview scheduling, document requests, the final checklist. I clicked the oldest confirmation first and held my phone beside the laptop. Caleb's post zoomed in until the image blurred around the edges. The numbers matched. My hands went cold. Caleb had not been given a separate application. My application had been changed after it already existed. That one fact rearranged everything. Dad had not just handed my printed folder to my brother. Someone had gone inside the official system and attached Caleb's name to a file the board already knew as mine. I searched again, this time using the word portal. The warning email appeared. Please confirm that no one else has access to your applicant portal. I clicked around the archive, opening every notification I had ignored during finals week. Most were normal. Then I found one sitting in the deleted folder, marked unread. Login detected from new device. My breath thinned. The date was 3 days before the dinner table. The device type was listed as a Windows desktop. Dad's work computer was a Windows desktop. He kept it in the den, password protected, the one machine in the house he insisted no one touch. He always said it was for invoices and tax records. I took screenshots of everything. The confirmation email, the deleted login alert, the recovery email change, Caleb's post with the barcode. Then I messaged Maya. Can you help me make a timeline without posting anything or telling anyone? Her reply came almost instantly. Library. Tomorrow morning. Bring everything. The next day, Maya was already at one of the back computers before first bell. She had her hair pulled up, a notebook open, and the serious expression she usually saved for group projects where everyone else was useless. Start from the first thing you know, for sure, she said. I opened my laptop. We built the timeline line by line, original Harrington confirmation. My name, my applicant ID. Final draft submitted through my portal. Login from new device. Recovery email changed. Dad announces Caleb is using the application. Caleb interview scheduled. Mrs. Renner contacted because her recommendation named me. Caleb posts the folder with my applicant ID visible. Maya stared at the screen when we were done. This isn't confusion, she said quietly. I know. No, Lolitha, this is a pattern. The word pattern felt more solid than betrayal. Betrayal was what I had felt at the dining table. Pattern was something someone else could see. Maya pointed at the login alert. Can you prove the desktop was your dad's? Not from this. Then you need something connecting him directly. I don't even know why he thinks this will work, I said. The board has my interview score, my counselor's letter, my records. Why would he be so confident? Maya leaned back. Maybe he knows someone. That thought had already been sitting in my mind, but hearing it aloud made it heavier. Dad had said, they won't notice. He had said, the story is what matters. People didn't talk like that unless they believed someone on the other side would help them. That afternoon, Dad stayed late at work and Caleb left for the gym. The house was quiet enough that every floorboard sounded like a confession. I stood outside the den for almost a full minute before turning the knob. Dad's desk was neat in the way that warned you not to move anything. Bills stacked by due date. Pens lined beside the keyboard. A locked drawer I didn't touch. But the printer tray had papers in it. I lifted the first few pages carefully. An email chain. My eyes stopped on the subject line. Applicant correction request. The sender name under Dad's was someone I didn't recognize. Elaine Porter. I read the visible section without breathing. As discussed, the family circumstances must match the submitted documentation. That was all. The rest of the thread was missing, like the pages had been printed selectively or removed. I took a picture. Under the email chain was another document, and this one made my fingers tighten so hard the paper bent. A scanned copy of my transcript. Except there was a cover sheet clipped over it with Caleb's name typed in large letters. Caleb Vale, Supplemental Academic Record. My transcript. His name. This was no longer just an essay. It was not Dad exaggerating, family hardship, or Caleb borrowing my words. Someone was trying to make my academic record travel under my brother's identity. I photographed that too, then put everything back exactly where I found it. By the time Caleb came home, I was in my room with the door locked, heart still beating too fast. Elaine Porter. I typed her name into the Harrington packet search bar, but nothing came up in the main board section. Not a chair, not a trustee, not an interviewer. Still, she was in Dad's email chain. Someone had spoken to him. Someone had used the word correction. I opened a new browser window and created an email address Dad didn't know existed. No family name, no saved password. Nothing connected to my old accounts. Then I started drafting. To the Harrington Scholars Board, my name is Lolitha Vale. Original applicant ID H4172. I believe my application has been altered without my permission. I stopped there. The cursor blinked after the sentence, like it was waiting for me to become braver than I was. I had screenshots. I had the barcode. I had the login alert. I had the strange email chain and the transcript cover sheet. But Dad had already prepared a story where I was jealous and unstable. If I sent this too soon and it wasn't enough, he would bury me under it. The next morning, Mrs. Renner caught me outside her office before the first bell. She didn't ask questions in the hallway. She simply handed me a sealed envelope. Put this somewhere your father cannot reach, she said. Inside was a copy of her original recommendation letter. My name appeared in the first sentence. Lolitha Vale is one of the most disciplined and deserving students I have advised in 17 years. My eyes burned, but I blinked it back, Mrs. Renner lowered her voice. The board's system logs changes. I can't access logs. Only they can. But if something was altered, there will be a record. That was the missing piece. Not proof I could gather alone. Proof only the board could see if I gave them a reason to look. After school, I opened the draft again. I didn't send it. Not yet. At 9:43 that night, a new email appeared in the secret account I had created less than 24 hours earlier. No subject. No greeting. Just a forwarded line from Elaine Porter. Do not let the daughter contact the board directly until the correction is finalized. Dad found out about Mrs. Renner 2 days later. He didn't say her name at first. He just stood in my bedroom doorway while I was putting my history notes into my backpack, holding his phone in one hand and wearing the same controlled expression he had worn at the dining table. Who have you been talking to at school? I kept my hand on the zipper. Teachers. Don't play smart. I'm not. His eyes moved past me over my desk, my laptop, the stack of folders I had started carrying back and forth every day because I no longer trusted my own room. You've been speaking to that counselor. Mrs. Renner. My stomach tightened, but I didn't answer fast enough. Dad stepped into the room. Hand me your laptop. No. The word came out before fear could catch it. His eyebrows rose. Excuse me? It's school property, I said, though it wasn't. Not exactly. It was mine, bought used with money from tutoring younger students. But saying school property sounded safer than saying, you can't have the evidence. Dad held out his hand. Laptop now. I closed it and pulled it against my chest. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he smiled without any warmth. All right. He walked out. 30 seconds later, the Wi-Fi dropped. My laptop showed the spinning icon, then no connection. My phone finally returned, but watched, showed the same thing. Downstairs, I heard Dad opening the router cabinet. He came back to my doorway. You can use the internet when you remember that living here is a privilege. I stared at the blank connection symbol. He hadn't taken the laptop. He had taken the air around it. From that night on, my routine changed. I stopped doing scholarship work in my room. I stopped leaving my laptop open even to get water. Every file went onto a flash drive that stayed in my sock, then my pencil case, then the inside pocket of my coat. I learned which computers in the school library were farthest from the librarian's desk and closest to the back wall. Ordinary homework started to feel like smuggling. At school, Mrs. Renner called me in before lunch. The Harrington board sent a formal request, she said, sliding a printed email across her desk. They're asking for proof of authorship, confirmation of volunteer hours, and clarification on a transcript discrepancy. The words transcript discrepancy made my hands go still. They saw it, I asked. They saw enough to question it. Her voice stayed calm, but her eyes didn't. The school may have to submit an integrity report if this continues. What does that mean? It means we document what records originated here, who they belong to, and whether anything sent under the school's name was altered. The paper between us looked suddenly heavier. At dinner that night, Dad placed a notebook in front of Caleb. Literacy Center, Dad said. You volunteered Saturday mornings. You worked with elementary students. You helped them with reading comprehension. Caleb rubbed his face. I don't know their names. You don't need every name, they might ask. Then learn enough. I stood at the sink, washing a cup that was already clean. Caleb turned to me. What was the supervisor called? I didn't answer. Lolitha, he said, sharper. Just tell me the name. I put the cup down carefully. You cannot memorize a life you did not live. His face changed. For the first time, he didn't look ashamed. He looked angry. You want me to fail? No, I want you to stop using me to pass. You always do that, he snapped. Act like everything you get is pure and everything I need is some crime. Dad pointed at me. Enough. But Caleb kept going, voice rising. You have teachers lining up for you. Mrs. Renner would probably write you 10 recommendations if you asked. I get one chance to fix my life, and you can't even let me have that. Have what? Asked. My name scratched off? He looked away. That was when I understood he was no longer just being carried along by Dad. He was holding on. The next morning, Mrs. Renner met with Principal Armand while I waited outside the office. Through the glass, I saw the principal's mouth flatten as she handed him copies of documents. When they called me in, his voice had lost the careful neutrality from before. If falsified records were submitted to the Harrington board, he said, the school may need legal counsel involved. Not against you, he added quickly when I stiffened, but to protect the integrity of our records. Legal counsel. The words followed me all day. Dad must have sensed the pressure too, because that Sunday he called a family meeting. Aunt Denise came. So did Uncle Ray, who usually only appeared when someone needed a truck moved or a lecture delivered. They sat in the living room while Dad stood near the fireplace, like he was presenting evidence in a trial. Lolitha is trying to sabotage Caleb, he said, because she can't stand sharing attention. Aunt Denise looked at me with disappointment already prepared. Honey, your brother needs support. Dad lifted a hand. She worked on the application. Caleb needed help. Families share resources. That is all this was before she turned it ugly. Partial truths were worse than lies because they sounded close enough to reality to fool people who wanted convenience. I sat on the edge of the armchair, phone face down under my thigh, recording. Uncle Ray sighed. You're going to regret being vindictive when you're older. I looked at Caleb. He stared at the carpet. Dad spread his arms. The board already knows the applicant was corrected. This is not fraud unless she makes it fraud. The room kept moving after he said it, but I didn't. Corrected, not submitted, not misunderstood. Corrected. He had spoken to someone close enough to the board to use that word like it. Protected him. That night, using the school library computer, I searched Elaine Porter through every public Harrington document I had saved. She wasn't on the voting board. She wasn't a trustee. Then I found her name in tiny print at the bottom of an intake instructions sheet. Document processing contractor, Elaine Porter. Not powerful. Positioned, someone who handled files before the board reviewed them. The shape of Dad's confidence became clearer, but not complete. I still didn't know what he had told her. I didn't know why she helped. I didn't know how much Caleb had known before the switch, but I knew enough to stop waiting. I opened the email draft from my secret account. Subject: urgent, unauthorized alteration of Harrington application ID H4172. I attached Mrs. Renner's original recommendation letter, the screenshot of Caleb's folder barcode, the login alert, the photo of the permission statement, the partial Elaine Porter email, the scanned transcript cover sheet with Caleb's name over my record. My finger hovered over send. Sending it would not just expose a scholarship mistake. It would expose Dad. It would expose Caleb. It would turn every threat in our house into something official. Behind me, a voice said, "What are you doing?" I turned. Dad stood at the entrance of the school library, staring at the subject line on my screen. Dad's voice did not rise. That made it worse. He stood just inside the school library, one hand still on the doorframe, his eyes locked on my laptop screen. The subject line sat there in bold letters, too large, too plain, too impossible to pretend away. Urgent. Unauthorized alteration of Harrington application ID H4172. For 1 second, I couldn't move. The library was not empty. 2 freshmen whispered over a printer. A junior slept over an open textbook near the windows. Mrs. Alvarez, the librarian, was shelving books in the next aisle. But Dad's presence still made the whole room shrink to the size of our kitchen table. He walked toward me slowly, closed the laptop. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. No, his steps stopped. It was the first time I had refused him in a public place. At home, his rules were the walls. Here, he had to keep his voice quiet. Here, people could look up. Dad leaned down beside my chair, speaking through his teeth. "You are about to destroy your family." I looked at the attachments lined up beneath the email. Mrs. Renner's letter, Caleb's barcode photo, the login alert, the permission statement, the partial Elaine Porter message. "No," I said. "I'm about to tell the board what happened to my application." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand what you're doing. I understand that my name was removed. You understand nothing." He reached toward the laptop. I pulled it back. The chair legs scraped the floor loudly enough that the freshman by the printer looked over. Dad froze, then forced a small smile in their direction. "Family issue," he said. From behind him, Maya's voice cut in. "Then handle it like one, Mr. Vale." Not by grabbing her computer. I turned. Maya stood at the end of the table with her phone held low against her notebook, angled just enough that I knew what she was doing. Recording. Dad saw it too. His expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. His eyes narrowed. "This has nothing to do with you." "It does when you corner her in the school library," Maya said. Dad straightened. "Lolitha is confused. She's upset. People are filling her head with accusations." "I'm not confused," I said. "You are," he snapped, then immediately lowered his voice again. "You're emotional, and you're letting that counselor turn you against your own family." As if summoned by the accusation, Mrs. Renner entered through the library doors. Maya must have texted her before Dad crossed the room. Mrs. Renner didn't rush. She walked toward us with the same calm expression she used in meetings, but her eyes took in everything. Dad standing over me. My laptop open, Maya recording, my hands shaking near the keyboard. "Mr. Vale," she said. "Why are you here?" Dad gave a short laugh. "To stop my daughter from making a mistake." Mrs. Renner looked at the screen, then at me. "Lolitha," she said. "Is this the email you told me you were preparing?" I nodded. Dad turned on her. "You had no right encouraging this." "I encouraged her to preserve records," Mrs. Renner said. "There's a difference. She is unstable right now." Mrs. Renner's voice stayed even. "Then why would an unstable student have the original applicant ID, the original recommendation letter, a portal login alert, and a photograph showing that same ID on her brother's folder?" Dad's mouth closed. For the first time since this began, another adult had said the pieces out loud in front of him. Not feelings, records, not family drama, evidence. He looked at me then, and I saw the calculation behind his eyes. At home, he could threaten expenses and rides and documents. Here, with Mrs. Renner standing beside me and Maya's phone recording, those tools were not working. So he reached for another one. He pulled out his phone and called Caleb. "Get to the school," he said. "Now." 20 minutes later, Caleb appeared at the library entrance, breathing hard like he had run from the parking lot. His eyes went first to Dad, then to me, then to the open laptop. "Loli," he said, using the childhood nickname he hadn't used in years. "Don't send it yet." I stared at him. "Why?" "Just wait until after the review meeting. We can explain." "We?" His face flushed. Dad stepped in. Caleb knew only what he needed to know. The words landed between us. I looked directly at my brother. "Did you know Dad changed my portal before he told me?" Caleb's mouth opened. No sound came out. The silence answered better than a confession. Maya lowered her phone slightly, her face hard with disbelief. Mrs. Renner's expression did not change, but her shoulders stiffened. I felt something inside me separate cleanly. For days, I had let myself believe Caleb was trapped in Dad's plan. Weak? Maybe. Selfish? Maybe. But not informed before it happened. Now he stood there, unable to deny he had known more than he admitted. "Lolitha," Caleb whispered, "I didn't think it would go this far. It went this far when you let him put your name on my life." Dad moved suddenly. His hand shot toward the laptop. Maya stepped between us so fast. Her chair toppled backward. "Don't touch it," she said. Dad's face darkened. "Move." Mrs. Renner's voice sharpened. "Mr. Vale, if you touch school property or interfere with a student's device in this building, I will call security." The word security stopped him. Everything paused. The printer hummed. Someone turned a page across the room. My own breathing sounded too loud. I looked at the email one last time. Then I pressed send. The message vanished from the draft window. A confirmation appeared. Sent. Almost immediately, a new email arrived. Automated response. Harrington Scholars Compliance Review. I clicked it with numb fingers. "Your message has been received and escalated to the Compliance Review Committee." Dad read it over my shoulder. The color drained from his face in a slow, uneven way. Then he said something I did not understand. "You have no idea what you just reopened." No one spoke. Not Caleb. Not Maya. Not Mrs. Renner. Reopened what? The next 3 months answered nothing quickly. The board interviewed me twice. Mrs. Renner submitted school records and her original recommendation. Caleb was questioned separately. Elaine Porter's name disappeared from intake emails. Then Mrs. Renner heard she had been suspended pending review. At home, Dad stopped mentioning the scholarship at all, as if silence could starve the investigation. It didn't. I finished assignments from Mrs. Renner's office when home became too tense. Caleb deleted nothing, but he stopped posting. Dad waited for the board to lose interest. Then the certified letter arrived. I saw it in the mailbox before Dad did. He stepped onto the porch behind me. "Give me that." I pulled it to my chest and tore it open myself. The Harrington board required all of us to appear for final determination. Me, Dad, Caleb. My eyes dropped to the last paragraph. "The committee has completed review of the original file, corrected file, payment records, and communications involving Mr. Martin Vale and Ms. Elaine Porter. Payment records." My hands went still. I had never sent them payment records. The Harrington board review room was smaller than I expected. After 3 months of interviews, document requests, 10 silences at home, and emails that said nothing except that the matter was still under review, I had imagined something colder. A courtroom. A hearing chamber. A place with raised seats and microphones. Instead, it was a conference room with beige walls, a long table, and a pitcher of water nobody touched. I sat beside Mrs. Renner, my folder in my lap. My copy of everything was inside it. Screenshots, emails, the recommendation letter with my name in the first sentence. The photo of Caleb holding the folder that still carried my applicant ID. Dad sat across from me in his work jacket, arms folded. Caleb sat beside him, pale and quiet. At the far end of the table were 2 board members and a compliance officer named Mr. Sy. Elaine Porter appeared on a video screen, her face stiff, her lawyer seated beside her. Mr. Say opened a binder. "Thank you for attending," he said. "The committee has completed its review of application ID H4172, originally submitted under the name Lolitha Vale. Originally." Dad's jaw moved once. Mr. Sy continued. "The evidence shows that Ms. Vale's application was ranked first among finalists before the alteration occurred. She was the recommended recipient pending final verification." My hand tightened around the folder. Mrs. Renner exhaled softly beside me. "First. Not maybe. Not close. Not everyone at school exaggerating because they liked a hopeful story. It had been mine." Mr. Sy turned a page. On March 14th, the portal recovery email was changed. On March 15th, applicant identity fields were modified. On March 16th, supplemental documents were uploaded, including a transcript cover sheet naming Caleb Vale, while containing academic records belonging to Lolitha Vale. Caleb stared at the table. Dad said, "There was confusion in the family." One of the board members looked at him. "Mr. Vale, the committee reviewed your communications with Miss Porter." This was not confusion. The room went still. Mr. Saye read from the binder. "You contacted Ms. Porter after locating her name through document intake correspondence. You claimed Lolitha Vale had withdrawn for family reasons, and that Caleb Vale was the intended applicant whose materials had been uploaded under the wrong sibling." My pulse beat hard in my ears. Dad did not look at me. "You also sent Miss Porter payment," Mr. Saye said, "described in the transaction note as a consulting fee." Elaine's lawyer leaned toward the screen and murmured something to her. Mrs. Renner's mouth pressed into a thin line. The second board member spoke. "Miss Porter did not have authority to approve an applicant substitution. She altered intake fields before final committee review, creating a file that combined Caleb Vale's identifying information with Lolitha Vale's academic achievements, essay materials, recommendation references, and volunteer history." There it was. The whole thing, finally said by someone Dad could not interrupt. Mr. Saye turned to another page. "We also reviewed the essay versions. The paragraph Caleb Vale questioned during preparation came from an older draft in Lolitha Vale's portal. It described Lolitha caring for Mr. Vale during a medical emergency. That draft was never part of the final printed application she prepared with Mrs. Renner." Caleb closed his eyes. I remembered him at the kitchen table asking, "What's the hospital paragraph?" He had not known because he had barely been there. He had not known because that memory was mine too. Mr. Saye looked at Caleb. "Mr. Vale, the committee also determined that while you did not initiate the alteration, you became aware before the review process that materials belonging to your sister were being submitted under your name. You proceeded with the claim publicly and requested her assistance preparing for an interview." Caleb's voice came out low. "Yes." Dad turned sharply toward him. Caleb did not look back. The board member continued. "The permission statement later presented to Lolitha Vale appears to have been an attempt to retroactively authorize use of her essays, records, and supporting materials." My mind moved through every piece in order: the thicker folder, the changed password, the barcode, Dad's confidence. The way he had said the story was what mattered. All of it had mattered. Just not the way he thought. Mrs. Renner spoke for the first time. Her voice wavered, but she kept it steady. "Lolitha earned every word of my recommendation. I wrote it for her, not for her family, not for her brother." My eyes burned. For months, Dad had made the truth feel like something rude, something dramatic, something I had to apologize for noticing. Now it sat on the table in a binder. Caleb turned to me. "Loli, I'm sorry." I looked at him. "Would you have told them if they hadn't caught it?" His mouth opened. Nothing came out. That was the second time his silence told me everything. Dad leaned forward. "I did what any father would do for a son running out of chances." I looked at him then, and for once my throat did not close. "You didn't save one child," I said. "You stole from another." No one rushed to fill the silence after that. Mr. Saye closed the binder. "Caleb Vale is permanently removed from consideration for the Harrington Scholars Award. Any conditional aid discussions tied to the altered file are void. Ms. Porter's contract has been terminated, and the matter has been referred to appropriate authorities regarding payment, unauthorized record alteration, and account access." Dad's face changed at the word authorities. The power he had carried so easily at our dining table was gone. He could not threaten graduation fees here. He could not take my phone. He could not call me emotional and make the records disappear. "The committee has restored the original file," Mr. Saye said. "Lolitha Vale remains the top-ranked finalist. After final verification, the Harrington Scholars Award will be issued to her." Mrs. Renner covered her mouth for half a second. I looked down at my folder, at my name written on the tab in my own handwriting. Mine. After the decision, everything moved quickly. The school issued a corrected statement clearing me of wrongdoing. The same students who had joked that Caleb beat me with my own counselor learned the recommendation had always been mine. Caleb's comeback season post disappeared, but Maya's screenshots did not. Aunt Denise called once, crying. Uncle Ray sent a short text saying he had not known the whole story. I did not answer either of them that day. I moved into Maya's family's guest room until graduation. Mrs. Renner helped me change every academic account password and replace Dad's contact information on school forms. The board sent a written determination that Caleb's false claim had been rejected. Elaine Porter had been terminated, and Dad's payment trail had been referred for review. Caleb lost the aid package he thought he could grab through my application. Dad became responsible for the debt he had tried to bury under my future. His reputation as the father who sacrificed everything for his children collapsed when people read what he had actually sacrificed. Me. After graduation, Cape sent one message. "I'm sorry, I'm taking time off school. I know I helped make this happen. I saved it, but I didn't reply." Dad sent one email 2 days later. "You made this bigger than it had to be. I deleted it." By August, I stood inside the financial aid office at my chosen university, while a staff member handed me a Harrington Scholars Welcome packet. "This is yours," she said. I opened it slowly. My name was printed on every page. Lolitha Vale. Beneath it was the restored applicant ID, H4172. For a moment, I saw the dining table again. Dad's hand on my folder. Caleb's eyes lowered, the envelope leaving the house under someone else's arm. Then I picked up the acceptance form. I signed it myself. I scanned it myself. I sent it from an email only I controlled. 5 minutes later, the board replied, "Congratulations, Lolitha Vale. Your scholarship has been officially secured."